All right, so let's go ahead and set up a scenario now where we're actually using a backing track that I've created. Now, I've got, I think, 9 backing tracks or something that I did for this course. And then I'm also, I think I mentioned this before, but I'm also going to be supplying you with a couple of the Kemper profiles that I'm using for this as well. Now, if you don't have a Kemper, obviously you don't need to use those, but if you do, you can use those for whatever you want. Okay, so basically what we want to do is we want to start off. Now we've got all of these tools that we've talked about, expressive elements that we've talked about, fundamental practice things that we want to get ready for. So now we're actually going to start using all of this. So this particular backing track here that I've made, this jam track, is moving from E minor to D to C and then back to D. And again, my point was to keep it very straightforward, so it's something that we can start building from, okay? So the first thing I want to know is the key. Well, I know the key, it's E minor. I'm using these chords, which is, again, technically spawning from G major if you know your theory, and if you don't, it's okay. But the first question you have to ask yourself is, if the song's in E minor, what does that tell you about your construct, your field of play, right? Do you have pentatonic? Do you have diatonic? What positions do you know? You know, all that kind of stuff has to come into play the minute somebody tells you, you know, this song is in the key of whatever. So you start building a framework of ideas. Not only am I building a framework of the scale that I'm going to use, whether it's pentatonic, diatonic, whatever, which in this case would be E minor pentatonic or E natural minor, E Aeolian, right? If you know your diatonic stuff. But I'm also going to start thinking about the chords and laying out some chordal ideas. For instance, E minor I know is here. Okay. I also know I've got E minor here. I've got an E minor sitting right there. Okay. I've got E minor. Then I've got D. Well, D here, D here, D here, right? D here, D here. C, one, it's a whole step lower. So, right? So again, I know where these things are on my fretboard, and that's what I'm going to utilize. I'm not saying you have to see all the things I'm seeing. I'm just telling you that this is what's going through my mind if I know the song is in the key of E minor and the chord progression is E minor, D, and C. So I'm building out some playgrounds, if you will, for me to do my thing to. But I need to listen to the song and decide what's the tempo, what's the groove, right? That sort of thing. So I can start figuring out what I can and cannot do to interact with this music. And what I mean by that is the tempo, again, is a marker of speed. And there are some things that I might technically be able to do at 120 beats per minute that I'm not able to execute at 150 beats per minute because I can't physically play them. Now, I could convert them from 16th note to 8th note, or maybe a triplet thing or whatever. Again, all those things can be done with my ability to think and to apply these ideas. But if I'm working on a particular lick, and that lick, you know, can only be executed at a certain speed because I've only built it up that far, I need to know what tempo this is. Maybe I don't know in numbers. Maybe I don't know exactly what it is because, you know, we're just jamming or whatever. But as soon as the music starts, as I start exploring, I'm already figuring out what I can and can't do at that tempo. If I've got time to practice at home, of course I want to know what the tempo is. You know, I might tap it out on my, I've got a metronome on my phone that I'll tap out the tempo and figure out what it is. And that'll give me a better idea. But in order for it to do that, I've got to know what I can and can't do at that tempo as well, if that makes sense. So we can't just go in blindly and then expect to be able to execute all these great things that we've learned if we don't know whether or not they're going to fit at the tempo that the song is. And then the next thing is groove. Like in this case, the groove is a triplet field. Let me play a little bit so you can hear what this sounds like. Let me get this pulled up here. All right. Okay? So now I've got an idea in there. Now I'm going to start taking all of these things that we've been talking about and start applying them. Now, I could just improvise for you, but instead of doing that, I want to start with some of the basic routines that we were doing in the last section and start building my way around. So, the first thing I think about is with this da-da, that's my tempo. Now, it has a triplet feel. It has a swing feel. Now, that doesn't mean I have to play that fast. I might, let's see, I'm going to come up to E minor pentatonic just to begin here. Okay? So if I think of it as a triplet, let's go, so that's what I'm saying is, if it's got a triplet feel, which it does, and I want to play that triplet, I've got to technically be able to execute whatever it is. Whatever it is I want to do, I've got to execute that at this speed. If I can't do that, that's not an option for me. I have to do something else. That's what improvisation is all about, is figuring out what you can and can't do in the musical circumstance you find yourself in. You don't let the audience know that you can't do X, Y, or Z, but you know that you really can't approach that thing, whatever it is, at that tempo, or you can, and now that's available to you, okay? But that's what practice, that's why you got to do this over and over and over. So, I've got my E minor scale. All the different things I can see on the guitar that are relative to this E minor idea. Okay, so as the music starts and I've got this dun, 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 I can play at that quarter note, bump, 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 dun, dun, dun. I could play the triplet going. Now again, I'm playing it boxy. If I was using my expressiveness and dynamics and all those other things, I'm not just going to go dun, da, dun, da, dun, da, dun the entire time. But I want to show you what my options are. So as I'm listening to this, let me start it again. Okay, or I could go. So that's where we are so far. Again, just meandering, whatever. I'm not really improvising yet. I'm just trying to kind of show you. So the next level up would be my full triplet. That sort of thing. So it's going to be substantially faster though, right? So those are the palettes that I have to work with in terms of its groove, okay? Now, I don't have to play fast all the time, but those are the things I have.